Here on the Costa del Sol, the Dutch have been making quite a lot of noise recently, and to let us know what's going on, I've invited Maarten Glaser from the Glaser Group to let us know his thoughts as to how things are going. I'm really pleased that you come in today because you've got a lot of insights that we want to make sure that our audience get to hear. Yeah. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, Maarten, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and why you're here.
I moved to Spain roughly 9 years ago for the second time in my life.
All right.
With my wife and 3 daughters. I moved the first time to Spain roughly 20 years ago when I was 19.
Okay.
Different situation. I went to work, I went to party, and I lived in Mallorca, Fuerteventura, and Gran Canaria. Went back to Spain, had children, and came back here.
You went back to Holland?
Yeah.
You went back to Holland?
That was it was a surprise. We came back on a holiday in the Netherlands, and my current wife, girlfriend back then, we found out she was pregnant. So we stayed in the Netherlands, built a family there, and 10 years ago, it was getting tricky again. It was trickling, and I wanted to do something else, so we came to Spain.
And what did you do in Holland? What was your...
Sales. I've always been in sales. So I've got an education in tourism and leisure management.
Right.
Been in sales, everything you can think of. Came to Spain to find a different lifestyle. Instead of the rat race that we're used to in the Netherlands and living inside, I wanted to be a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more focused on quality instead of the rest. Outside living, nature, better food, and that's why we came to Spain for.
Whereabouts in Holland are you from?
The south, province called Limburg. I'm from a small town called Spouwbeek. It's 3,000 people big last time I checked. I grew up between the fields and the forests, literally.
Yeah.
And that was a very nice time. Growing up, we were making bonfires in the woods or climbing trees, stuff like that. Very nice. And now, the big Costa del Sol, a little bit different.
You got 3 kids, but your childhood sounds quite idyllic. Sort of thing.
So I've got now 3 daughters. The youngest is 14. I've got one of 16, and my oldest just moved back to the Netherlands to work for 6 months.
Okay.
Before, we see, but she's planning to go to Ireland in September to go to university.
What was it about Holland that you didn't want the family to grow up there, or was it a decision for the family, or was it you personally, professionally?
I think it was a combination of both. I was looking for a new environment. Me and my wife had lived in Spain before. We really liked that life. Yeah. And I just wasn't happy in the Netherlands anymore. And it wasn't a place where I wanted my kids to grow up. It was depressing. People are not happy. You live inside. I mean, to give you an example, I brought my kids to work in the morning, to school. Before going to work, then I went to work, came home, eat, do something for half an hour with the kids, and then it's 8 o'clock. You bring them to bed, you sit on the couch, or you go have a beer with a mate. But it's very centered around inside living. People are not happy. It just wasn't how I wanted to grow up my kids, and I hope to give them a better way of living and a better youth than I could see happening in the Netherlands.
So when did you actually come back to Spain the second time? What year was that?
2017.
2017.
Yes.
So what did you do when you first arrived? Did you have a job lined up, or?
Yes. So a couple of weeks before we moved to Spain, I was completely done in the Netherlands. I had a talk with my wife, and she said, "Well, what would you like to do?" I said, "I don't know. What if you didn't have to work? What would you do?" I said, "Well, I will go back to Spain immediately." So she said, "Well, book a ticket, go to Spain, find a job, we'll move."
Right.
That's how it happened. I went to Spain a week later. I landed in Málaga, and I knocked on every Dutch, English, German bar, restaurant that I could find. Málaga, Tomelinos, Benalmádena, Fuengirola, and see if they needed people to work in a bar or a restaurant, because it's easy work. You don't need a lot of experience to get it done. I had done it for years. My only condition that I had is I'm not only looking for a job for the summer, because we were talking May. I also need a job in the winter because I'm moving my whole family. Had a couple jobs lined up, choose one, and they said, okay, but we need you here in 3 weeks because summer is starting. Flew back home and told my wife, okay, let's call a realtor, put the house for sale, and let's start packing, and we move.
So you sold the house in Holland and everything?
Yeah. Well, we only sold the house after we moved here.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, but it was literally, you moved lock, stock and barrel, everything.
Yeah, in 3 weeks.
And how old were you then?
I was 32.
And your kids, how old were they?
6, 7, and 10.
That was quite a big thing to do, right?
It was. I remember because we came here the 7th or the 8th of June. No, not sure exactly anymore. I think it was the 8th. And that meant here the kids could go to school for 2 weeks before there was summer holiday. So we didn't bring them to school. We just got everything sorted for September. And then after 4 months of holiday, they were going to school. And I remember on the first day, I was giving them written notes that I wrote down how they had to see, may I please go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
And those were the sentences that we had been practicing before going to school. So at least they know something in Spanish. They had some lessons, but yeah, of course it's different.
That's hard, isn't it?
And that's how it started. Yeah.
And how were the kids with that? I mean, they had no Spanish at all, right? Obviously, you just
no, and they were just going to Spanish primary school. My oldest found it easier than my second, for example. But no, all in, everything went well. They adapted quite well. In the end, okay, my oldest two, we brought them later on to secondary private school.
Yeah.
Because Kaylee only did 2 years of primary school. Then she went into the Spanish secondary system. And COVID started. So they wanted us to help her with math and lengua and stuff like that. Well, I couldn't do that in Spanish.
No.
And she wasn't very happy, and you could see. So we changed her into a private school.
That's really great, right? No regrets then.
No. For me, it's been the best decision. The only regret that I always say that I had is I didn't do it earlier. You know, when we came on a holiday to Spain almost 19 years ago, we were living in Gran Canaria. We came after season, end of September, on a holiday to the Netherlands. And it was there that we found out my wife was pregnant. So we said, let's stay here for a year, get the baby, and then go back. And before we could done that, I got sick, went to the hospital, and everything changed. And yeah, from there on, we just stayed in the Netherlands until it was too much.
I think what you just explained there is not unique to Holland, is it?
No.
We get this story from a lot of people that invest in southern Spain or in Spain in general, because the lifestyle that you described there is quite similar to where I'm from. I'm from the UK. And all northern European countries, I guess, have the same kind of issues to sort of deal with regards to the bad weather and the mundane side of it and the grey.
I mean, to give you a fun statistic, if you check out now with the Dutch Weather Institute, it rains on average more than 1 and 2 days in the Netherlands. There is an average of 189, I believe, 190 days of rain recorded in the Netherlands.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
But it's cold as well, right?
It's cold, and I think that the biggest difference is it's not per se the heat, because the houses are built for it and you can dress for it. It's the light. So on the shortest day of the year, we've got 2.5 hours more sunlight here in Spain than we have in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
But I also remember being a couple of years ago, there was a month that the city of Maastricht recorded 10 or 15 sun hours in 1 month.
Yeah.
We have that in general in December in 2 days.
Yeah, no.
So all these things make such a difference in the way you live, in the way, mainly in the way you live, but how you act, what you do, what you're able to do.
Exactly, and when you've got kids as well, it's especially more than one child. I've got 2, you've got 3. Having young kids at home all the time is...
I'm happy to
it's
have
a recipe for disaster, isn't it?
I'm happy to have a big garden.
Okay, so you got a background in sales. Thank you, Bart, for that.
Yeah.
That was interesting. Your background is in sales. You came to Spain. You started working in what, a restaurant?
Yeah.
Did you say?
Yeah.
How long were you doing that for?
For a year.
For a year. Obviously, did you learn Spanish there or in the restaurant?
No, because I already knew some basic Spanish from my first stint in Spain. And I was working in a Dutch-owned restaurant who was very focused on Dutch clients, Dutch staff. So there was, not a lot of Spanish involved there.
So how comes we're talking today? You're an expert in the real estate business on the Costa del Sol. What happened?
Sales. I'm a sales guy. I'm not a waiter. I'm not a barman. At one point, I thought it might be fun to open my own bar, but I'm a sales guy. And, well, then language becomes a thing because I can work at a furniture shop. I can work at a car dealer, but I wasn't fluent in Spanish.
Right.
Real estate, very different because it's very English oriented. And yes, you need some basic Spanish, but I knew that. So I went looking for a real estate agency where I could work mainly with Dutch clients and help them buying their properties here. I found a job at a Marbella-based company.
Right.
And I worked there for a year and a half, roughly. When I went to ask for a raise, because I was their number 2 salesman in my first year already in that company. And they offered me to open my own franchise place under their name.
Right.
So that changed the game again, and going for a race and getting your own company, a little bit unexpected, but it was a very nice opportunity.
And what happened from there then?
COVID.
Of course, because you arrived in Spain in 2017.
Yeah. So having all the contracts signed, have found an office, getting the office ready, etc. And I opened on the 3rd of February.
Yeah, just before.
Well, 1 month and 10 days before we went into complete lockdown, having my savings in, having staff on board, having everything prepared to make a flying kickstart, and then getting punched in the face by COVID.
So
that happened. And in the meantime, during COVID, what happened, because it was a period that until it was really over or affecting the day-to-day life here in Spain, it took 2 years.
Yeah.
And me and the franchise company, we drifted apart. Different ideas of how to move forward, different priorities. And for me, it wasn't feeling as the right place to be anymore, or the best thing to do anymore. And that's when I decided to go full force ahead and starting Glaser Group.
Okay.
And that's now 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Yeah, 4.5.
And the Glaser Group consists of just you?
No. Thankfully not. Having a holiday rental department, having a real estate department, it would be a little bit too much to do on my own.
Okay, so but are you the sole owner of the
I am the
Glaser
sole owner, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So tell us about the Glaser Group then. So why did you create it? I think it was kind of forced upon you a little bit, maybe.
Yes, well, the thing was mainly it didn't feel right on the place where I was anymore, because it was more quantity focused than quality. And I was missing some things that I thought were very important and that I wanted to focus on more. So I very invested big in the quality side of doing transactions, the service and everything related to it. And I rather work a little bit longer with the client to have everything perfect and them completely taken care of before we move on.
Can you go into a little bit more detail about the quality angle?
Yeah.
What was missing?
Aftercare, service, easy things in my mind, but apparently not the day-to-day bread and butter in real estate. I mean, I think it really depends as well on what type of real estate agency you're working with. I mean, we've got 20,000 real estate agents roughly on the Costa del Sol.
Is it really that much?
Yeah, it's gotten a little bit less, I think, the last months, but say an average between 15 and 20,000 real estate agents, not agencies, but agents. Right. And you've got them divided in, say, 3 groups. the really big real estate agents with the massive departments and service and 30, 40, 50 people working there. You've got your small to medium-sized real estate agencies, or like mine. And you've got the people who are doing it with a laptop on a bar, a restaurant, their kitchen table.
Maybe just starting out, maybe.
Or doing it like that already for 20 years. It just depends on how they like to work and what is important for them. But what you see is every type of real estate agency can give you different services. You cannot expect one single person working from their kitchen counter to give you the same amount of service and advice than a big real estate agency having 40 people and interior designers and lawyers and you name it. And I really thought of how can we be a smaller company that is still giving that high amount of service? Because people don't only want to buy a house. They want to be taken care of, and they want you to find the gardener, and they want you to help them fix the furniture or open the door when they go. They want you to be the contact person. Like now with all the storms we had in the last months, clients are not calling their insurance companies because of the damage. They call us if we can contact the insurance company.
Yeah.
And we go there and we'll open the door for the insurance company and we'll make sure things get repaired. So providing them that peace of mind,
Yeah.
that is what Glaser Group is about.
Okay, cool. So I'm just going to touch on that a little bit because yesterday I had a meeting with a lawyer and we were talking about what do foreigners or foreign investors look for. And we kept on coming back to the word cariño, which is a Spanish word which literally translates to care. And it can involve lots of other things. So some of the things that we feel foreigners are nervous. They don't know the country, they don't know the language. They want to find someone that's going to care for them and respect them and like them and look after them. Is that what you're meaning by the quality of service?
100%. So we just transferred last week a €3 million villa. The gardener that maintained the garden for the last 20 years doesn't want to continue working anymore. So that's a choice.
No, fair enough. Yeah.
But that means that the client asks from us, okay, help us find a new gardener, somebody to maintain the pool. Do you know somebody who can do some reform for me? We need an insurance. We need new security system. But I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be in the Netherlands, in the Caribbean, wherever. Can you please take care of this?
Yeah.
So next Monday, we go there. We have 4 different gardener companies coming to see the garden. They'll give the quotes. We'll send them, and the client can choose. And I think it's very important to give that level of service because the people we're working with are not living here on a day-to-day basis. They're going to be in the Netherlands. They're going to be in Denmark. They're going to be in England. They're going to be wherever. But a big part of the year, they're not going to be here. And they need a company that they can trust on. And that's what we try to be, as good as possible.
One thing when I first met you, Maarten, one of the things that I liked about you is that you're quite straight. You're quite honest.
Yeah.
You tell it as it is, right? You told me a few things recently, which is quite, which I needed to hear, right? which is great. But that's what that's what clients want. They just want someone that they can have a normal conversation with. It's going to tell them the truth.
Yeah.
And not rip them off.
I don't believe in fluff. It's black or it's white. It's nothing in between, at least business-wise. You know, I will not tell you that a bad house or a bad investment is a good choice because I like the commission. People need honesty. And I think honesty is there in real estate. But I think a lot of people also are being led by the money they could potentially earn. And are more focused on that than the actual client.
In my line of work, I see that quite a bit.
Yeah. So we try to do it different. Yes, don't get me wrong. I'm in this business to make money.
You have 3 kids to feed.
Of course. And I've got a wife who wants a new house and stuff like that. So that's not the issue. But the focus is the client. And to give you a very simple explanation, I just told you about the €3 million house that we transferred. Well, it was actually this week. And I made some very significant commission on that, and I'm very happy with that. But I also showed that client the house that I would have made 80% less commission on, because the focus is not on making the money. The focus is on helping the client. And by doing that and giving them what they want, we get our best advertisements, because he will recommend us to his friends, to his family, and like that, you'll sell another one and another one and another one.
So it's more of a long-term business strategy, isn't it?
Yeah. So we haven't done, I think, in my company, any lead generation in the last 3.5 years. And this is going to be, in our company at least, a record-breaking year. We already know that from the sales. We already know that are coming, or the assignments that have already been signed.
I mean, just to clarify, Fluent Finance and the Glaser Group don't have a commercial agreement, so there's no commissions going in between the two companies for any recommendations, and I think that's important for transparency purposes.
May I say something on that?
Yeah.
Because I do think it's very important what you just say now. And your company and my company, we both don't work with commissions. But it is the standard in the real estate industry that if you bring your client to a lawyer, the lawyer will give you a commission. If you bring your client to a bank, a lot of times the bank will give you a commission. To a mortgage advisor, to a gardener, you can name it. Everybody is asking for money or giving money. And I think it's very important to know for clients if their agent does that, because they're being led to people based on an agent trying to make more money instead of giving the best advice.
If the commission element wasn't there, would you particularly recommend that particular company or that person? And if the answer is no, then really and truly you should give your head a wobble, really, in my opinion, because I would like people to look out for me. And put me to the people who they honestly think are the best, rather than just that are looking out for themselves.
Yeah, but it's not the standard. And I know of stories of lawyers who lost the real estate agents they were working for because they no longer wanted to pay a commission.
Yeah.
We don't want a commission. Our work is buying and selling houses and investments. That's where we get paid for. On the service side, we'll do probably a lot more than we should for the commission that we get from selling. But at one point, we started also sending invoices to a client for hours that we made for all the extras that we do. We're not a charity.
No.
But we always make very sure to the clients what our business model is. Selling the houses and later on the services. But never advising a lawyer or a mortgage broker or a bank based on commission that we should get.
Yeah, ultimately things could go wrong. It may not be the right advice.
It could blow back. And that's I think with us, when we look in the mirror at the end of the day, we want to be happy. And yeah, of course, money makes us happy, but a clean conscience is much more important.
I've met some of your, quite a few of your clients over the last couple of years. And those clients you want to look after, they're pretty good clients, right? Yeah. They're nice, but the thing is, they're all lovely people, and they're quite successful. So you want to make sure that you look after them, because if you're getting recommendations from them, you won't need to spend anything on advertising, right?
No, but that's the thing. So, for example, Paloma, my assistant, is on the way now to the house of one of those clients that you've met, because there was storm damage, and the perito from insurance is coming by, and yeah, it's a service. It's the cariño that you speak about, because the client is flying out. Actually, she will be in the airport now. She will be in the air. And she knows that, hey, Maarten and his team, they have it covered. We'll take care of it. We'll get it done. The new blind will be installed and everything is taken care of. And when they come back in 10 days, it's like the storm never happened.
You don't just deal with Dutch clients, right?
No. So we're a very international organization. It depends a little bit on which side of the work, but we help from Canadian, Mexican, Americans, to Polish, to English, Dutch, Spanish, you name it. It's all in there.
And where are you based?
In Arroyo de la Miel.
Arroyo de la Miel.
Yeah. So we've got a nice little office in the center of town there, straight above the bars and the bakery. So always come by for a good cup of coffee.
And you cover the whole of Costa del Sol, because I know you've done deals sort of all the way down to Cancelo.
Yeah.
How,
Our main focus actually is Málaga to Marbella.
Yeah.
And a little bit the inland area. So Alarin, Coín, Alora, because that's where I live.
Yeah.
That's where I meet a lot of people and they ask me to help them. And our office is on the coast because our investment portfolio from the clients for our rentals is mainly in that area. I've helped people buy properties in Manilva and in Malaga, but yeah, our main focus point and the most knowledge we have is Malaga to Marbella.
Let's touch on the investment side of it, right? So you created the holiday rental business.
Yes.
Tell us about that. Why did you do that? What's it there for?
So again, this is a quite funny story. Being in real estate now almost 8 years, 7.5 years, I always said there is one thing that I do not want to touch on, and that's holiday rentals.
Yeah, but then now you're doing it.
Because I don't want people to call me at 2 o'clock at night that they flocked themselves out and stuff like that. But again, there life happened. The clients that I met wanted to start more and more buying properties. And the question kept coming up, Maarten, do you know a good management company to do it for us? And I didn't.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to advise anybody that I wasn't 100% sure of, because even by advising somebody, I'll put my name on it. So I was discussing this issue with a client. I said, listen, it's for me, it's very difficult to advise you to a good company, because if something goes wrong, it blows back to me.
Yeah.
And he came with the remark, why don't you do it yourself? So, well, I never really wanted.
It's hard work.
It's very hard work. The commissions are lower. It's more about here the quantity of the work, because you need a lot of work to be making money. And I thought on it, and in the end decided to go and do it. This client bought a couple of apartments, so we started quite small there, and we are growing every month. We get more properties, and yeah, we had a very good summer. The company keeps expanding. We had an average of occupancy rate in January and February well into the 80%. I think in February it was 86 and in January 83%. So we keep growing in that. I've got an amazing head of operations there. We've got amazing cleaners, handymans who take care to the highest level of it. And it's a complete different game, but it's very fun to do.
A lot of your clients are fairly wealthy individuals that not only love Spain for their lifestyle, but they look at Spain as investment.
Yeah.
If you've got a kind of logical, isn't it, to me, from a financial perspective, you make an investment, you've got to give it the ingredients to perform. An investment has to perform.
Yeah.
And I think the rental management the company
Even more.
is essential to ensure that your investment has the best chance to perform to its maximum capability. And if you can get that right, clients who are looking to invest into Spanish property for business purposes, for commercial reasons, if you get that right, they will probably invest more.
Yeah. So that's why we have a lot of our clients that we represent don't just have one property with us. They have a second, the third, the fourth. So you see that coming back. But what we see more and more now as well is that clients contacting us because they've heard we're doing a good job and they're not 100% satisfied with the company they're with now. And they heard we do good, and they heard that the return on investment our clients are getting are good. And what you need to keep in mind is the Costa del Sol is quite big, but a lot of times the networks in there, the people who know each other, are quite small. A lot of Dutch know each other. You know, if you're in a business club, a Dutch business club, you speak with each other, and if I do good for you, you tell your friend. And like that, it keeps going. So that is also one of the strategies behind us. If we do very good with you, you promote us to your friends. So we go all in, because if your property makes money, I've never heard anybody not being happy if it makes money.
I kind of get that, because a lot of agents, you see, they just sell the house and they're done.
Yeah.
They're happy. They're like, I've done my job, that's all great. But that's kind of, in my opinion, quite short term. People want more than that.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you even a fun story.
Go on.
One of the properties I recently sold, and I was speaking with the owner, so why didn't you use the agent who you used when buying it? He said, I haven't heard anything from them since I signed my purchase contract. They didn't even go to notary with him.
They were just spending the money, right?
They signed on a new build. They signed the purchase contract and they never spoke to the client anymore. So
what does that tell you, though? What does that tell you?
It tells us that there is a lot of room for improvement. But it also tells me that clients don't always research the people that they work with. And they meet somebody in a bar and they go off from there, or they, do your research. It's good, I think, that we're getting more and more regulations in real estate if everything goes well. Now the question is, will it improve the quality of the work?
I think it will, a very, very small amount, but one small step is a step in the right direction, in my opinion. But we shall see if it actually comes in and how it actually affects. And regulation develops over the years as well. So
it will take time.
It will take time. Let's focus on the big thing that's come out recently. I saw one of our colleagues, Alfredo, come out with a stat that the Dutch in the actual nationality leagues are actually number 2 now, behind Brits in terms of buyers in real estate in Spain. What can you tell me about that? Where were they a few years ago?
I think they've always been here. I think you see a little bit more diversification. So the percentage that each country has will shift a little bit. But I think a very big change is happening in the Netherlands. It's 0.1 tax-wise, box 3, how they call it in the Netherlands. So that is actually the tax you pay on your wealth, on your investments and stuff like that.
So this affects box 3 is a wealth tax?
Yeah.
And that's come in, in the last year?
No, it's already, so the box 3 is already there a very long time.
So why is it affecting them now?
Because they're changing it.
Okay.
So for decades, the Dutch government said, buy a second home, buy a third home. Yay, not a lot of problems. And now they said, hey, you've got multiple properties. Let's start twisting the knot and let's get more money out of it. And what you see is a lot of people build up a portfolio as a pension plan, whatever. And they're selling now because actually it's costing them money.
It's something like 2% on the value of the asset, right?
It's got to do with, so the last years there has always been a fictional percentage that they say that's what you earn on your property. So you have a property and even though you don't do anything with it, the government says, hey, you need to pay 6% on that because that's what you make. And
even though that you're not making anything.
Even though they cannot prove it. So that's been to the Supreme Court and they lost it. And it's a huge thing in the Netherlands, but that's why it keeps changing. And a lot of people are afraid that all the money that they've worked for, all the investments that they've done will cost them a boatload of money. And that's one of the reasons Spain is very interesting, because of the double tax treaty. So if you buy property in Spain, you cannot be taxed, and you're being taxed on it here in Spain, the Dutch government cannot tax you on it.
It's a European-wide thing.
I think another thing is remote work, the efficiency of it, the possibility of it, and the Costa del Sol becoming more and more a living destination instead of a tourist destination. So I think those two things are grasping together, but the majority being, tax changes and making it less interesting for people to have a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth property.
And the reason why this is important for my or our audience is all the time we get clients. So what's happening in the market? They could be from the United States, it could be from Britain, they could be from anywhere in the world, and they want to know what's going on in the market, who's buying.
Yeah.
The question is, especially in Britain, they get quite a bit of bad press. Property market in Spain is overheating and this, that, and the other. And I get asked the question, is it gonna, are we gonna see a downturn in the market? And we have to explain to them is that the Brits aren't the only ones that are buying properties here.
No.
They need to look at the macro situations in other countries. And this is why it's so interesting to find out what's going on in Holland and as to why this is happening. Now, we've had lots of different nationalities come and go. We've had Russians, obviously, and they're no longer around. But the Dutch now are, like as mentioned, they're number two.
The number two. And maybe next year or the year after that changes. And I think that's one of the things people need to realize, that the Costa del Sol isn't only interesting for the Dutch or isn't only interesting for the English. We've got huge amounts of Eastern European coming from Poland, Croatia, things like that. We've got more and more American, Canadian, Mexican coming. So the demand is there. And the fact that the Dutch are now the second biggest group probably has more to say about the state of the Netherlands than the state of the Costa del Sol, the property market here. Because if it's not the Dutch, somebody else will take the place.
Yeah.
I had this talk last Saturday. I was invited somewhere for a birthday, went there, and I was speaking with a Dutch guy, and he says, yes, I'm already waiting for years for the property prices to go down. Because it's bizarre how expensive it is. Yeah, he was only looking in Puente Romano, and he is waiting until prices go down. It will be a long wait. Prices have been going up and up and up, I think, nonstop for the last 10 years. And we see the market change. People aren't coming here anymore to buy a holiday home and be here 6 weeks a year. They're coming to live. And somebody is coming here to live and has the idea to spend the next 10, 15, 20 years of their life here.
They'll pay.
They pay. They don't mind if they pay 500 euros a meter more or less, as long as they see it as a great investment and a great place to settle. Because somebody who's coming for a holiday home, yeah, that's a complete different situation.
These guys are really motivated to be here.
Yeah.
It's not just a money thing for them. It's a lifestyle thing. They've got a bigger motivation, so they're willing to pay for it. Right?
Yeah. Plus, what you see, for example, with the Dutch, even though they might spend more money than they anticipated, the end result is much better here than in the Netherlands, because the tax benefits, the taxes here are better or cheaper than in the Netherlands. It's a win-win for a lot of people. So you get better taxes, you've got a free holiday in your own home, and you can rent it out if you're not using it.
Yeah.
So also those people, they don't care if it needs to be 400,000 or 450,000. As long as the return on that investment stays well, they can do it.
Remember, you've only got one life, right?
Let's hope we have a second, a third, a fifth. I don't know, but let's enjoy the one we have now and make the best of it.
Maximize, what you get out of your life, and a lot of people see south of Spain or Spain in general as a good place to spend a good amount of time and invest.
Yeah, and connection is very important with that, because the Costa del Sol is very well connected.
Yeah.
The airport last year had its busiest year ever, I think, with roughly 26 million people coming. The Málaga airport, with a capacity of 30 million, is going to be expanded because they expect more and more and more influx. So they are expanding now in the next years the capacity of the airport to 36 million. So you can see there is still a lot of leeway to go and a lot of possibilities. And for people who are waiting for prices to tank, I think it's going to be an expensive wait.
Now, one of the things I wanted to touch on is the rental market.
Yeah.
The question of social housing. People in Spain are always saying, well, the government doesn't build any houses for low-income families. And that's a valid point. So I started comparing the social housing situation in Spain compared to Holland. Now, from what I researched, it says, now correct me if I'm wrong, that 30% of the housing stock in Holland is designated for social housing. the housing stock in Spain that is designated for social housing is less than 2%.
2%.
Do you think this is having an effect on investment into property here in Spain?
Yeah. I have to say, I don't know the exact numbers in Spain and the Netherlands, but I do know indeed that there is a big difference. To give you an understanding.
To be honest, the numbers don't have to be exact. I mean,
No.
there's such a big difference between the two.
It's a huge gap. In the Netherlands, you've got something called like a woonstichting, and they've got hundreds and sometimes thousands of houses, and they're regulated. They've got a maximum cap of what they can ask, etc. So the Dutch government is doing that. In Spain, you don't see it. So when I started on my own, I lived in an apartment of 450 euros in the center of town.
Yeah.
And then you get a small allowance from the Dutch government to help you pay your rent, for example. So the laws and regulations that they have in place there, they might not be perfect, but it's different than in Spain. In Spain, you've got nothing.
Yeah.
In Spain, a lot of times clients are asking me about, hey, I'm thinking of investing. The first question we ask is it short-term or long-term rent? And they ask for the benefits or the differences. And if you want less hassle, you go for long-term. But long-term also has more risk. And that is a little bit counterproductive because, you do want people to buy something and put it out so everybody can live there at a normal price. The problem actually that is there is that a tourist here is willing to pay the same amount for a week that if I want to rent a house, I'm willing to pay for a month. So, with a Spanish government that isn't very focused on this issue. And is more focused on other things, and I think blaming foreign people that they're buying properties and trying to restrict rental regulations, etc. They should be more focused on helping to build more properties with these purposes.
That's what happens, isn't it? People deflect blame away from them when it's really that that's the core issue, is that they need to look in the mirror and see what's really going on. We get this question a lot. You see, I want to invest in Spain, but I don't know how. Why can't I rent my property out long term? Because in my country, Holland or in the UK, it's safe. I get a regular income. I don't have to worry about cleaners and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think understanding the core differences between one market and another will give people a better insight, and so therefore they can make better informed choices. Now, if we know we have a social housing problem because successive governments haven't invested into it, you can understand now why we have a problem with ocupas, because they've got nowhere to go.
They've got nowhere to go.
They need a roof over their head, but the government aren't supplying it. So it's down to the private sector
to facilitate
it.
But don't get me wrong, in the Netherlands as well, it's not easy to get a house. You sometimes have to wait years before you're even on the list high enough to try to get a house.
At least there's a list.
There is a list, but in the Netherlands, a lot of times people start registering at woonstichtings when they're 18 in the hope that by the time they're 25 and want to live together with somebody, they're high enough on the list. This is not something you see in Spain, but the Netherlands, it's a smaller country. It needs 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 houses to be built to have enough space for people to live. We see the same in Spain. The only thing in Spain is foreigners keep buying houses, and the laws and regulations are so uninteresting for them to use it for long rentals that they're almost forced to do it with short-term rentals. Yeah. Because if somebody is going to live there with 2 small children, and after 2 months they stop paying the rent, you don't get them out.
No.
You can't force them out. You can't evict them. You need to go to court, and you're going to be losing years and years of money. And shall I tell you what the fun thing, or the crude thing with it is? If the homeowner still has the energy supply contracts on their name, what happens quite frequently, the electricity, the water, they cannot turn it off.
No.
Even though their bill is not paid, they cannot disconnect the water and the electricity, and they will get a fine if they do it. So with the Spanish regulation on long-term rentals and the rental protection, I think there is more problems to solve there, and start building houses that are more purposely built than start canceling licenses for tourism rentals, etc.
So there are risks involved in investing in Spanish property. It's just you need to understand what
Always
they are,
risks.
and then you make the right informed decisions as to what you want to do.
Yeah,
Right?
but I don't think there are only risks involved in the Spanish. It's also if you do it in the Dutch or the English. The only thing is you know exactly the situation. So what is very important is get good advice and make a good plan. Find the right people. And from there on, execute the plan.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this video goes somewhere. I know it's quite in depth, but it will hopefully it will help highlight some issues that people may not have heard about or thought about, and reach out to us. We're coming to near the end of the interview. It's been good, but I just want to, obviously I'm a mortgage guy, finance guy, and we help international clients. What challenges do you think, or do you see that your clients have regards to buying houses with finance?
I think that one of the big differences, at least, is that in the Netherlands it's very easy to keep stacking mortgages. And you see it specifically with investors. They expect, hey, we're EU. We all have the same regulations. What we do in the Netherlands, we can do in Spain.
Yeah.
Use the rental revenue from property A to pay the mortgage, to get a mortgage for property B, and thus keep going.
Yep.
In Spain, it doesn't work like that. So that I think that is one of the situations that we come on. And I think it's with the mortgage request, people are not used to the amount of documentation that they need to supply. Because in the Netherlands, a lot of times you go to your house bank and they can just do print and can see everything.
Yeah.
Here, a bank doesn't know you. So you need to give them your bank drafts from the last, 2 years, or your contracts and this and that. And there is so many documentation that you need to supply that in the beginning, they can be overwhelmed. Especially if you have a Dutch company. Yeah. What we see in Spain, it's now 26 and my accountant is closing the books of 25 and will give me the papers on that somewhere in the next days. Yeah. In the Netherlands, you see companies still closing the books of 2023 or 2024, and that's very normal. But if those people want to get a mortgage in Spain, it can be a little bit more difficult.
Of course, because the Spanish banker will be going, well, if I can get Spanish company details right up until a few months back, why on earth can't I get it? Is there something weird going on?
Yeah, and it's just the way that it works in the Netherlands. So those things make it a little bit more challenging sometimes. But I think that's why it's very good that people go to a very good expert instead of go directly to a bank. Get an expert, get a mortgage advisor. Don't go to one bank and let them go and give you an offer from multiple banks, hold you by the hand, help you, advise you, and make sure to get the best opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Dutch market is quite similar to the UK market from where I'm from. I see a lot of similarities I see more similarities between the Dutch market and the UK market than I do between the Dutch and the Spanish mortgage market. And that there's an assumption now it should all work the same way. A mortgage is a mortgage is a mortgage, but that's not the case. There are some serious different rules and regulations that underpin this market compared to the market in your own, and which you need to understand. And you need someone who actually has the knowledge and the competency to be able to have the confidence to explain these differences. You probably won't get that if you walk into a branch and deal with a local banker there. So in my opinion, I would suggest to reach out to someone with a high level understanding of your personal situation, but the market conditions, the differences between the two markets, and so they can explain to you why the things work differently and what you can do to solve those issues. And one of the big things is obviously prepare your documentation well in advance, so you don't feel overwhelmed.
No, but also prepare your documentation in advance, because before you're going to go house shopping, it's best to already have your mortgage checked and approved. Because by the time that you've got everything ready and then start house buying and you make an offer, it's not like, oh, it's subject to mortgage. Because in the Netherlands, it's very normal to make an offer, but it's subject to mortgage. Here in Spain, nobody likes it.
No,
because your
no.
subject to mortgage can mean that I need to wait 3 months if you haven't done your work before we even know something if you can buy the house or not. So, for example, my agency, we do not accept any offer that's subject to mortgage.
You shouldn't.
Because I'm not going to take a property off the market for 3 months and then here, I'm sorry, we couldn't get the mortgage. So we advise people, go and get everything checked. And by the time that you have an offer from the bank or you've got an okay from your mortgage advisor, call us back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going through this. I mean, you have an obligation, not a legal obligation, sorry about that, but you have an obligation or a responsibility to the vendors to bring qualified clients to the table. Someone who hasn't got their mortgage ready, who hasn't got their cash ready, is not a qualified client.
No, it's
You're
a waste of
wasting
time.
the vendor's time. Now, I know this because I'm trying to sell a house myself at the moment.
Yeah.
It's been on the market for a while. And I get these offers and I ask certain questions about the offer and the people, and I say, I don't know. Or, yeah, they're still talking to the bank. Well, don't come to me with it's not an offer.
No.
It's not an offer. Come to me with someone who's serious.
And I think what you see, if you make an offer like that, you're always in a weaker place to make an offer because you cannot force anything.
You're not even in a place to make an offer.
No, I know, but you still see it happen a lot.
Yeah.
I want to make
noticed
an
it.
offer. I want to pay you 100,000 euros under your asking, but I'm not sure I'm going to get the mortgage. So
Whoop-a-doo.
point 1, you've got nothing to offer. Point 2, if you're even in a place like that and you want to make an offer, you've got no negotiation space. So it's a very frustrating thing. Like in the Netherlands, it's normal. Here it's not, because in the Netherlands you know quite fast if you're going to get the mortgage, yes or no.
I think the mortgage market in the Netherlands and the UK is more robust. There's more certainty here. Here, unfortunately, you can walk into a branch, you can speak to a mortgage broker, and they can promise you the earth and then deliver nothing. I mean, we're Ella, who's just started with us, having a terrible conversation. A guy's put 40,000 down for a place. He's been messing around with a couple of banks. 4 or 5 months later, they said they can't give him the mortgage. He's going to lose 40,000.
Wow.
That doesn't happen in Holland, right? It doesn't happen in the UK. Yeah, but
No,
it happens here.
normally not.
It happens here because it's not robust enough. The advice levels are not robust enough.
Yeah.
And you urge, and we urge for, if anyone who is interested and wants a high level of certainty, you need to go to a proper mortgage company that can actually,
But I
guide
think
you.
that is not only for mortgage advice. I think people should realize that, look into the people you're working with. Google a company, go to the office, go and check, walk in unannounced, because then you see what a company is actually about, and then you see how well prepared they are and what they can do for you. And I think the high level of service, knowledge, and commitment is here. It's 100% here on the Costa del Sol. But you need to look for it.
It's not readily available, is it?
No, because there are 2 real estate agencies at every corner. How do you differentiate between the one who knows it all and the one who knows almost nothing? And I think I know, without any issue, 10 Dutch people who call themselves mortgage advisor here on the Costa del Sol. Who knows their stuff, who doesn't, who is good for you and who doesn't. It's very difficult to see. And that's why it's so important to work with the professionals in the business. Because you get the best advice, the best possibilities, and ultimately the best deals.
I think a good question would be to ask anyone, what's your level of Spanish? Are you able to communicate at a high level, my industry, with banks?
No.
Not everyone in a bank speaks English, In fact, the top level decision makers in
Don't.
Spanish banks don't speak English.
No.
All they speak is Spanish. So does your broker advisor, is he able to have high-level conversations with the decision makers? If the answer is maybe not, then maybe look maybe look somewhere else.
I had it recently in a house that I sold. I was the listing agent, and the buyers, they had the mortgage approved. It wasn't. And then you start talking with the mortgage advisors. Yeah, which bank did you request it? And he, for example, only requested a mortgage from one bank.
Well, he's not really a mortgage broker then, is he?
He was living in the Netherlands, doing mortgage advice in Spain for a Spanish registered business. And I'm like, you don't speak Spanish, you live in the Netherlands, and you're going to do mortgages here in Spain? So we were selling a house in Alegre El Grande, and the mortgage advisor was in Altea. Well, that was where the branch was that he worked with, and he was in the Netherlands. I know, yeah, it's not how it should be, and in the end everything worked out, but it got delayed and delayed and delayed.
Kind of stressful, I'd imagine, yeah.
Stressful for the buyers, because, well, they were Dutch. I spoke with them quite frequently. They were stressed out to the max. The sellers, very stressed because they were immigrating to a whole different part of the world. And in the end, they could only book their tickets 3 weeks before because things got delayed by miscommunication, by misknowledge, and things like that. So
the end result, do you think it would have been, in terms of the mortgage process, if you could have graded it, would it have been like a 10 out of 10? Or
no. I mean, the communication for me as a real estate agent, it was very poor and unsatisfying.
As an experience, was it a good experience?
No. If you ask me, it was a 1 out of 10 because it was a frustrating part for the seller. It was frustrating for the buyer. It was frustrating for me. The mortgage advisor never had an answer, always had to wait for the bank. And then at Friday afternoon says it's 4 o'clock. Yeah, the bank is going to call me within 30 minutes. And I had to tell him, listen, no Spanish bank is going to call you at Friday at 5 o'clock. So I'll speak to you on Monday.
But that experience, how do you feel people have walked away? The person that bought, the person that sold, you know,
so
are they going to go and recommend that experience to other people? No, they're not.
No, and I'm afraid that in the end, the one who bought is paying too much interest.
So the deal wasn't that great either. So pretty
3.9%. I don't know if that's a great deal or not.
Yeah, I know what bank it is. Okay, right.
You tell me if the deal was great or not.
No, there's cheaper out there. Okay, but that again, I don't want to delve into that. But if you only work with one bank, that's all you're going to get. Right, fine. So let's try and wrap this up. It's been a great conversation. I want to know what you think, where Glaser Group's going to be in next year or in the next 3 to 5 years, and what do we need to look out for in the next this year, for example?
I think Glaser Group will slowly and steadily keep building. We just keep expanding the team. We just added a new assistant, Paloma, to the team. That makes sure that our service and our quality can even be more and faster and better for our clients. And I think that's what we'll keep chipping away with. We're doing our first own reform and refurb project that we've bought with a client, beachfront Fuengirola. We're reforming it and selling it.
You're partnering up with a client?
Yeah. We saw a very interesting opportunity. So I'm very curious to see how that goes because I want to experience it myself. So that's why I partner with one of the clients to see how it goes. I want to have skin in the game because this is, especially also for Dutch investors or investors in general, a potentially very interesting place to go if it's done well.
Mm. And your kids, do they want to take over from you?
I mean, one wants to be a flight attendant. One doesn't know what she wants to be, but she's quite artistic, so I think she might do something with that. And my oldest is now planning to go to Dublin to university to study international business. But if she really wants to take over, she's 18 now. No idea. let's first make sure that she's got something to take over in 10 years.
That's the most important thing. You've got to hand something over, the baton over, if she wants to take, if they want to take it.
No, it's one step at a time, and I think for Glaser, yes, we keep buying, we keep selling, but the holiday rental is becoming bigger and bigger. That's a big focus that we have.
And you're going to maintain your focus on quality rather than quantity.
Quality is everything for us. We rather sell less and do better, because in the end, sell less and do better will generate in sell more and do even better.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Well, on that note, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Maarten.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
No worries. See you again soon.